Thank you for watching Conscious Consumer Network. The live stream broadcast is free to view. You can pause and rewind live broadcasts to catch up, or view shows at a later date by accessing our free archives of all shows. Check out our broadcast guide to see what's on. You can show your support by donating to our network support fund. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or subscribe to the monthly newsletter for updates. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
This is For the Love of Learning, Voices of the Alternative Education Movement. Be inspired by the voices of visionaries, changemakers, and ordinary, extraordinary people who do what they do, all for the love of learning.
If you're a change maker, you probably should be an innovator, and an innovator always faces resistance. You get into a new way of thinking and you will have to battle, you will have to persist, work hard to convince people and to join you in your new way of thinking.
My name is Ainsley, and I'm from Canada. As a result of taking part in the Changemaker program, I am now a much more confident social activist.
The Global Changemakers was an amazing program for us. As Jackie just said, it got us started. It opened us up to a massive network of people around the world.
My name is Sharika.
Hey, my name is Jazz.
I'm from Bangladesh.
I'm from Wales in the UK.
And if we had to describe Global Changemaker in one word, what would we say?
I would say energy, because it's always moving. There's people all over the world.
Well, I would say passion, because all we do is with so much passion, and you see young people coming together from all over the world, and they share this common interest, the love for the world and for people.
Hello, my name is Oliver. I'm from Germany. I became a global changemaker at the Euro-Africa Youth Summit in Brussels in 2012, where I saw that young people really can have an impact on their communities.
I've benefited immeasurably from the Global Changemakers program as an environmental and social justice activist.
How did I get all these opportunities? The Global Changemakers. The support, the dedication, and the love they've showed me has gone beyond anything and has been so life-changing.
Global Changemakers helped me utilize my knowledge, skills, and even my talents to my co-Filipino youth in various communities around me here in the Philippines.
And the Global Changemaker family helped me develop the skill, the passion, and the drive to fulfill my tasks in this position successfully.
But today I can call myself a real activist, and that is thanks to you. You have given me the tools to take my dreams and put them into actions.
Global Changemakers has really helped me. It has helped my initiative, and through that I've received funds from the Global Changemakers to do my initiative in Kenya Damu.
One word I can use to describe the Global Changemakers program is life-changing.
Global Changemaker for me, it's all about community.
My name is Eddie Michelle Okech, and a 2009 Global Changemaker and the founder of Peace for Africa and Economic Development, commonly known as PAD. PAD is a grassroots-based non-profit in Kenya that incubates, develops, and supports youth-oriented income-generating projects by helping them in capacity building and also access to capital to initiate their small and medium businesses.
At Transform This project, our kids from graffiti, what they did to transform their community was to restore degraded walls of their school and paint them with graffiti as a way to pass on other kids positive messages like don't get yourself into drugs.
The idea is they can transform their community in the way they want, with the things they like, in the way they like.
We first started Rugby League Against Violence after meeting at the Asia Youth Summit in 2011 in India.
The Global Changemakers was an amazing program for us and opened us up to a massive network of people around the world that have continued to support us over the last couple of years. We've just received a lot of funding from the British High Commission to do a training program for a lot of Papua New Guineans and deliver some more programs.
So I just came up with this idea of starting a music school in Haiti, which is one of the worst case scenarios in this world today after the natural disaster. So this idea is to bring music education to people around in Haiti and help them to develop themselves through this music education.
Thanks to Global Changemakers, I've been able to see the world differently by also participating in international gatherings through which I was given a voice to speak to world leaders and be a part of global change.
There is no one like you in the world. Find the thing that means the most to you and hold on to it and never let go.
You know, during the Global Changemakers program, the Global Changemakers program is a wonderful platform because I think that youth today do have families, it's not that they don't. Changemakers.
This is For the Love of Learning, Voices of the Alternative Education Movement. I'm Lainey Liberty, and this is episode number 99. In this episode, we're going to speak with 5 young changemakers. This episode will also be co-hosted with my son, Miro, who are among one of the 5 changemakers on tonight's panel. What is a changemaker? The term changemaker is simple to understand just from the words it's made from. So what kind of change do changemakers seek? For the most part, the only change that really matters is social change or any other kind of change that can help people. Changemakers can be described as social entrepreneurs, activists, or other number of titles. There is one main difference between changemakers and the rest of the world. Most people desire change. Many know what they would like to see different in the world, and some even know how it could best be done. There is a higher class of people who act to see their change happen. Many of these people fail. However, this is where change makers differ. They make their change happen. Using a combination of knowledge, resources, and determination, they push through until their dream becomes true. And then they push through some more. Changemakers are the force of social evolution. Everyone can become one, and everyone should. Welcome to episode number 99, where we will meet a few of these extraordinary youth. So let's jump in. So I am so excited to have my co-host with me here tonight for this show, Miro, and we'll get to Miro in just a little bit, but what an honor it is to be sitting with these global change makers who are all working on projects that are meaningful to themselves and to the world. So normally what I do is I read their bios, but instead of doing that tonight, I'm going to actually pass the baton over to each of our panelists and let them introduce themselves from their own words. And I'd also like to hear a little bit about the projects that you're working on and the things that you're doing in your life that make you one of today's global change makers. So we're going to actually jump over to Caitlin and Cassidy, who are sitting together, who are sisters, and they're going to start the show off. So the floor is yours, ladies.
Yay! So hi, I'm Caitlin, and this
I'm
is
Cassidy.
So we're sisters. So we spent most of our lives traveling, really. The majority of the time we lived in Venice, in Italy. So we went to Italian school at first. We learned Italian. We became part of the Italian society there. And then 3 years ago, our parents decided to start traveling full-time with us and world schooling. So learning about the world as we experience it in different countries, meeting different people. And the past 2 years, we started volunteering after meeting a lot of refugees, mainly from Syria and Afghanistan and Turkey and other parts of the Middle East. So after this experience, we realized that we wanted to make a difference. We wanted to help these people after seeing what they've been through and what they're still going through now. So at first, we started volunteering just by ourselves. But then we thought, we had this idea of, we wanted to get other kids involved as well, because it was just us with our family, and we thought, well, we're making such a difference, we want to share this idea. So we started a nonprofit, and we called it Kids Unite for Hope. So it's about kids uniting a community of youth, global citizens, sharing stories, but also volunteering. So it's a charity as well. And we recently volunteered here in Greece for 4 months with refugees. That was like a life-changing experience. Yeah, so if you want to go on.
Yeah, well, we were volunteering in Greece for 4 months. We started off working in a school where we did English classes and math classes to the kids. And it started off with about 5 kids, and then it grew to a big class of about 20 to 30 kids per day. And do you want to add about that?
Yeah, so it immediately escalated, and at first we were like, well, how is this happening? Why are so many kids coming? And we later realized that we were making such a difference in the lives of these kids, and they wanted to come and learn. They were desperate to learn because we were their peers and we were their same age. So there was no hierarchy, there was no teacher. It was just a community, a group of kids or teens coming together to learn. And it was an exchange of learning, and they would teach us Arabic as we taught them English. So it wasn't just us as the teachers, but we were all together learning and having these experiences. And these kids really changed. I mean, being from countries that were war-torn and were in a refugee camp, their lives were just so difficult, and they were just so sad and depressed. And seeing how much they changed through this learning, through this community, they were so hopeful, they were so joyful by the end of these months. So we realized that as youth, we had the power to make a difference in these people's lives. We consider ourselves change makers now because we really saw firsthand the effect that youth can have on other youth, other peers their same age. So yeah, that's our experience, that's us.
Thank you. I mean, it's just such a wonderful way to start off the show, and I'm going to ask you guys a lot of questions as we get deeper in. So thank you for starting off the show. So Alex, did you want to go ahead and introduce yourself next?
Okay. So yeah, my name is Alex, and I'm, like I said earlier on, originally adopted from Romania when I was 2 years old from an orphanage by German parents. And lived 11 years in Germany, and we moved 10 years ago to New Zealand, and I speak also fluent German. And yeah, so some of the projects that I'm working on kind of started off in 2003. We tried to adopt from Romania, but they closed adoptions again there. And they've got now roughly over 70,000 children in orphanages there. And the first time I was invited to speak, there was in 2013 when I was just 18 at the Parliament on international adoptions and children's rights. And the second time in 2015 when I was there also for 2 weeks speaking at universities, high schools, and at an international conference there. So that was quite a big event. And also I was speaking there on national TV when I was surprised with my birth family. yeah, that was quite emotional and unexpected. Yeah, and another project that I'm working on now is helping help a friend set up a non-profit in New Zealand, which helps people find their birth family and promote adoptions and provide support with adoptions after people have been adopted. Yeah, and then
So being
go on.
So being somebody who was adopted, this is a project that is near and dear to your own heart. But can you talk a little bit about the children's rights issues that you're trying to tackle through your project?
Yes, I'll come to this because the I'm Adopted project that was set up by a friend that I'm part of, but my project that I'm working on is setting up a youth development project in Romania, and also trying to organize a global forum for people that have been adopted, or youth forum, and eventually I'd like to get it to the UN and really big, conferences, but it's going to take some time. But I've been working with some adoption agencies around the world, including one in Australia that was founded by Deborah Lee, the wife of Hugh Jackman.
And what issues are you trying to tackle with creating a community forum for those that have been adopted?
Basically, what I would try to create with it is to kind of raise the profile of adoption, and because there's quite still a lot of stigma around adoptions, and it sometimes gets this negative rap as as child trafficking, which there have been cases, but it's not to do with adoptions. That's just child trafficking. But proper adoption has nothing to do with child trafficking. They've got quite some strict conventions which actually were established in Europe in The Hague in the 90s. So it's addressing that, and I guess the global youth forum that I would want to set up, that I'm working on setting up, is to give people that have been adopted a voice, because there is really nothing like that out there for people that have been adopted to voice. I think there are lots of other organizations, for children's rights, but not adoptions, and it would be good to get them to the UN and to The Hague eventually, for them to hear their voices, their voice there. And the community program in Romania is to tackle the institutionalization of youth, because they've got currently a 21% unemployment rate there, youth unemployment. But they've also got a shortage of skilled-based jobs, such as, painters or electricians. So that's kind of where you could fill that, bridge the gap. And I've been actually working with the Romanian embassy in New Zealand and Australia with that. And I was invited to speak on adoptions on their National Day in 2016, last year in Sydney. I'm not Sydney, sorry, in Canberra, in the capital of Australia.
So the adoption issues that you've really been focusing on are over international adoptions, not just localized, right?
Yeah, international or inter-country adoption, as you'd call it. Yes, international adoptions.
And it's really interesting to me because 4 out of the 5 teens or youth that are on this panel are third culture kids, and that comes with with its own set of challenges. And so I think that's something that we should talk about a little bit later on. So thank you so much for that introduction. I can't wait to hear more. So I'm actually going to hand the floor over to my co-host and son, who is also a youth global change maker, and go ahead and share what you do.
Right. So my name is Miro Siegel. I'm 17 years old, and so we actually, I'm sure our story is pretty well known on the show, but I can talk a little bit about it anyways. My mother and I, we left the States about 8 years ago to travel on what turned out to be an indefinite trip. And through this travel, we eventually transitioned to a more alternative form of education. And we've actually really become activists in this unschool and what we like to call world schooling community. So about 4 years ago, we co-founded this company together named Project World School. And through Project World School, we've been able to travel to different places and form these temporary learning communities in different countries and different parts of the world to enable teens and adolescents who are also pursuing some kind of alternative education, to enable them to have a cultural, authentic experience, something outside of what they've done before. So that's kind of what we do, what we are doing to, enact this global change. As she said, a lot of the panelists here are third culture kids. I'm, in fact, a third culture kid, having lived outside of the States for almost half of my life at this point. And yeah, I mean, that was a pretty summarized version of our story, but I'm sure it's been talked about before. So,
well, I think one of the things that obviously this show, we talk about alternative education. You too have adapted the stance of becoming an activist for somebody who is very deeply educated, who doesn't go to school. And I think, for all the people that are talking about it, you are a better spokesperson because you're living it. So yeah, thank you, son, for being on the show tonight too. So, and let's jump on over to Karen. Karen, go ahead and share with us what, who you are, what issues you're tackling, and what things you're very passionate about, and what makes you a youth global change maker.
So I'm in my mid-20s, so I don't know if I actually count as a youth, I'm sorry. But I'm Kieran, and I'm an activist. I don't know what makes me a global change maker, as most of my stuff is pretty US based. But I'm the tech director and board member and co-founder of the Coalition for Responsible Home Education. And we try to make sure that there is some accountability for homeschoolers, because in the States there's no regulations at all. And so the problem that we've found is, there's educational neglect, which is one thing, which is a thing that I've personally suffered from, because my parents looked at me, saw a uterus, and said, you don't need algebra or math or science, which isn't great considering my field is tech. So that's one aspect. And the other aspect is people taking their children out of school, saying that they're homeschooling them, and just abusing them to death. So we want to have some accountability while allowing for all of the flexibility that makes homeschooling and unschooling great. We just want to make sure that kids aren't being murdered by their parents. And the other thing I do in the Bay Area is housing activism, because the San Francisco Bay Area has been in a housing crisis for a very long time. And because a lot of the cities in the Bay Area have decided to be sanctuary cities due to who we elected as president, housing is really, really important. So I'm part of a movement called YIMBY, which is Yes in My Backyard, to build as much housing in the Bay Area as we possibly can, so we can actually be a sanctuary city and a sanctuary area for people both fleeing foreign countries as refugees and people fleeing from other parts of the U.S. as refugees. So yeah, that's what I do. And CRHE has answered a lot of questions about schooling in other countries. It's a little bit hard for us to answer questions since we don't live in other countries, but we do have a wide network of people that we ask from other countries about what homeschooling is like there and how to do it, so we can help other people who are homeschooling globally.
So in essence, your homeschooling activism work is really about children's rights and protecting them from some sort of systematic abuse that could be a result of the choices that their families made. Now, is it, in your experience, are you looking out for kids because of their families, or is it from the system at large that you're protecting their rights?
So what we tell people is we advocate for the rights of homeschooled children. The only other organization that is big and national in the U.S. is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, and they advocate only for the parents. And their method of advocating for the parents is erasing every kind of accountability ever, and making it so people who like are convicted child abusers are totally allowed to homeschool with children that they're currently abusing and beating and starving. So we look out for basically just the wide interests of homeschooled children, making homeschooling a safe learning environment for them. It's less about families and more about policy. We think homeschooling is great and unschooling is great. We just want to make sure that like the children's rights and their being and their education is not being thwarted. They're not being homeschooled so that abuse is hidden. They're being homeschooled because it's in the best interests of their education and of like their identity and well-being in general, just like for the child. Because some kids aren't meant for school, and that's fine. And homeschooling is a great option for that.
And could you talk a little bit more about your personal experience that brought you to become an activist for this particular issue?
Yeah, so CRHE is founded entirely by homeschool alumni. So we're all like the first generation of homeschoolers to graduate high school and like become adults and see the pitfalls and like the gaps in our education, and things that we can fix to make it better for the next generation of homeschooled kids. So that way homeschooling is like a fantastic option instead of something that can be kind of tainted. So my experience was I'm the oldest of 8. I spent from the age 8 to 18 raising my siblings while my mom generated more. And I was responsible for my education from the time I was 10 because my parents realized they could just like give me books and I would read them because I'm a naturally driven learner. A lot of my siblings are not necessarily. So I did my school because I wanted to, because I liked it. I graduated when I was 15. Conveniently, when my mom was pregnant again, we had a foreign exchange student and she needed like more hands around the house that weren't distracted with schoolwork. So I didn't do algebra. I did consumer math, which was math that I already knew how to do from running my parents' home. And I didn't do science because I didn't have the math for the science. Because to do high school level sciences, you need at least algebra. I really wanted to do chemistry too, but I think I needed algebra too for that, and I hadn't even gotten out of pre-algebra. So my ability to do the sciences that I wanted to do was completely limited by the fact that my parents didn't feel like I needed to do math. And so educational neglect is an issue that's near and dear to my heart because it's directly impacted my life in my fields where like on a self-confidence level, it's just kind of plummeted because I'm like the one person who doesn't know how to do algebra, but also because math and science is a skill that I need to work in tech and to write code. And algebra is problem solving. And that is something that you do every single day. So solving for X is a good skill to know. And my siblings actually kind of have it worse than me because they're not all as naturally driven as I was. So they're being held back and are further behind than where they should be, which is really upsetting to me because I was responsible for their education for a good while I was there before I moved out. So it's just sort of like a very personal thing, and I'm like, I want homeschooling to be an option for children that is good for them, that is going to give them everything they need to succeed as an adult, and isn't going to be used as a way to like indoctrinate and leave your kids behind. My parents' entire goal in homeschooling us is to raise all of the people who were assigned female at birth to be homemakers and breeders, and all of the kids who were assigned male at birth to be the breadwinners, which isn't, you can't just blanket that. People don't necessarily want those things. So it's instead of homeschooling being used as a limiting tool, which is what my parents used it for, I want it to be used as like a tool that opens up the world to people. So did that answer the question? I kind of got lost. I'm sorry.
That was absolutely amazing. And we'll actually dig in a little bit deeper because I bet there's some stories in there about family traditions, religion, and all that we'll get into in a little bit that I'm sure would be very interesting to explore. But thank you. You did answer my question. I do want to shift gears just a little bit and ask this panel if you could share with us, and actually just as Karen just did, some of the challenges that you've encountered while doing your work, some of the challenges maybe on a personal level, or the doubts that came up, internally as you were, you made a decision to do the kind of work that you're doing, and maybe now the doubts are coming up, or the voices, that are saying, are you sure you want to do this? This is really the path you want to take. And also, in addition to the internal challenges, maybe some of the challenges from the external world around you. So share whatever stories, and I'd love to hear where your path is taking you so far. So I'm going to hand the floor over to Cassidy and Caitlin.
So we, for 4 months, we worked in a refugee camp. So in Greece. So these were people that were living in like tents, camping tents, and they were like 5 to 7 people in one small tent. They didn't have any money, obviously. Many times they were being mistreated. So for us, it was really hard, I think, to try and help all these people, and seeing the desperation and the hopelessness. And just many times, even when we were doing our classes, like we taught English, or just did crafts, arts, anything to play with the kids, and things like that, we would get the parents, the kids' parents that would come, for example, bringing their babies, sometimes even newborn babies, and they're like, please help us. We don't have any diapers. We don't have any clothes. We don't have any food. Our kids are starving, things like this. And we got so heartbroken because we had no way to help these people. Many times they would say that their family members needed help in other places, or they were planning to smuggle across borders that were very dangerous, and they risked being caught and beaten, all these different circumstances. And it was very hard for us. I think it was a big challenge for us to cope with some of the stories and just the desperation in these camps. And for an example, like there were maybe 3 to 5 showers, cold showers, for every 1,000 people. So seeing just like that, like to go to the, take a shower, they would wait like in a 2 to 3 hour line, or there were 10 bathrooms for 1,000 people. Porta potties, very dirty, they were never cleaned. So seeing those challenges, and having these parents or these kids tell us that they haven't taken a shower in 2 weeks, or that they haven't eaten in 5 days, they haven't eaten real substance food in 5 days, that was very hard. Another short story for us was teaching or helping these kids to learn, just because a lot of them told us stories how their schools had been bombed in Syria. Many times they weren't in the schools, but a couple of our friends were actually in the school when it got bombed, and when the rubble came on top of them, and all these different stories. So there were like 15-year-olds who couldn't read or write in their own language. Sometimes there were 10-year-olds who were more advanced than the 16, 17-year-olds. So the challenge of trying to help all these different kids and youth learn when they were such different ages and different languages as well. Some spoke Farsi, they were from Afghanistan, some spoke Arabic, some completely other different languages. So the challenge of trying to teach all these kids together and learn when there were so many different languages going at the same time, and we couldn't really communicate with them in our broken Arabic, and them in their broken English. So I think that, do you have any other?
Another challenge was dealing with kids that had been through a lot of trauma, and a lot of them had very tragic stories, and just dealing with all this emotion going on inside the refugee camp in Athens was very difficult, and it was a really big challenge for us, and every day would just be a very challenging day.
Yeah,
within the refugee camp.
And could you share, I know I've spoken with you guys in great detail, and I think the overcoming the emotional challenges from both within inside of yourself and being supportive and available for the teens that you were working with, you know, that became not only just a big learning process for you, but an incredible obstacle to overcome because, you know, I'll let you tell the stories, but, you know, talking about this pent-up aggression and fear and not only that, and the cultural differences in terms of how they express themselves either through hitting and that kind of interaction. Maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, at the beginning when we arrived at the refugee camp, the kids were, they were very traumatized, aggressive,
Yeah.
and they didn't know how to handle their emotions because they'd been through so much that it was so hard for them to really get their emotions out. And a lot of them didn't have many friends, and they didn't have a community where they could come and speak with people and just let all their feelings out and have these friends with whom they could share really how they were feeling and their stories, and they couldn't let any of that, all that trauma out. And so when we got to the camp, we saw all these kind of aggressive and sad kids that were very emotional. And once we finally broke through the barrier of being like, you know, refugees and volunteers, it became like we were like family, like friends, and it was such a special bond that it was irreplaceable. And these kids, they trusted us, and they really felt like we were like one of them, and like we were part of their community.
Yeah, definitely. And for us personally, it was really hard at the beginning because we would see that we just see all the different emotions going up and down. So many of them have been through, you know, they lived through years and years of war and their homes being bombed or their siblings dying, things like that. And so at first it was really hard for us emotionally to hear the stories or to see them like get super angry and freak out and then just break down in tears and just share all their stories or their feelings. And we'd go home and like just start crying because we couldn't take it that we cared for so much for these kids that had been through so much and were dealing with so much pain and fear. And but I guess, I mean, after months, we slowly started to not get used to it, but to not, I guess, cry as much as we did at the beginning. But it was a real struggle. And a lot of times, because they had been through so much, it wasn't as easy to try and just tell them like, oh, well, it'll be okay, don't worry, because they had been through so much and they still had to go through so much to find safety and find a home. And it was really hard for us emotionally. So many kids were, they wanted sometimes to even steal, like we were doing arts, and they just steal anything they could find because they were so desperate. Or they'd fight, they'd never share because they were so used to having to fend for themselves and fight for what they want. So that was a real struggle for us, dealing with the trauma of war.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I'm just so moved every time I hear you two talk. Thank you. Alex, why don't you go ahead and jump right in and share with us some of the challenges that you've encountered along the way as you move towards doing the work that you do.
So probably the first biggest one probably was when I was in 2013 when I spoke at the Romanian Parliament. I remember still there was one woman who was adopted when she was 10 in the 2000s, and she had spent 10 years in her life in an orphanage, and what she'd been through was really quite insane. She had been sexually abused before the age of 10. She had never seen daylight, and for showers the kids were just hosed down like animals once a month, and they got stale bread for food. So that was quite something hearing that firsthand. I mean, I'd seen documentaries, but hearing somebody that's been through that, and talk through it, that was quite insane. Or in 2015, when I was in Romania again, I met somebody from the US who was, adopted from Romania, and he'd been also 10 years in an orphanage, and in his orphanage they gave the kids rat poison to try to finish them off in the 90s. So that was quite intense hearing those stories. But I guess, I guess similar, elements like with Kathy and, sorry, sorry, I can't pronounce, Catherine and,
Caitlin.
Caitlin. Yeah, sorry, yeah. Kind of like, you're a bit, shocked, but then you kind of want to do something, and that kind of led into all my projects and things. And kind of also in a way, I guess, it's kind of, you get in, you kind of feel, you're not making much difference, but I guess everything is slow progress in that kind of work. And I guess what added to the challenge was when I was there in 2015, being surprised with my birth family, and also visiting 2 orphanages and going into one mental institution there, inspecting one mental, and going into a room where all the paint was gone from the walls because the kids scratched it off at night. And then seeing a girl have a mental breakdown and clinging into you, making some kind of bird duck noises. So that was quite a tough time, and took quite some time to recover from that in 2015. Oh, can't hear you.
Kieran, first of all, Alex, I was giving you a thank you for sharing without trying to jump in, but Kieran, the floor is yours. You don't have to wait for me, just jump in when you're ready.
Cool. Yeah, so some of the challenges that we face in homeschool accountability advocacy is there's a lot of different aspects of this. So the people who we face a lot of like pushback when we try to work with legislators and advocate for some kind of legal oversight. It's more the legislators who get the bulk of this because they're the face to it. They just ask us for suggestions, and we are like, here are some ideas on what might make things better. And so there's a lot of pushback from homeschool families against having any kind of accountability for them, even though it's in like the best interests of their child and education. And some of the other challenges we face are we get a lot of emails from parents lately who are going through divorce, and like one parent wants to homeschool and is super religious, and the other parent is like, no, please do not homeschool my child. You are super religious and I know what you're going to do. And there's not a lot that we can do there because we're not lawyers. So we just have to give them the information of like what the educational law is in their state and be like, this is something you have to work out in court with your custody case because we can't really help too much, but here's the laws in your state for what counts and what doesn't. We also get a lot of letters from we've gotten a lot of letters from people who are wanting to homeschool in the wake of the Orange one. And this is what we call our president, the Orange one, for obvious reasons, which we predicted. And so we've been like just answering a lot of questions like, how do I homeschool? What do I do? And it's like, well, here's what the laws are for your state. Here's what you can do. Here are some resources. But the other thing that we try to convey to people is homeschooling is a large responsibility, and it's not something that you want to just jump into. It's really something that you should decide that, like, with your child and if it's best for them, because a lot of bad things can happen if you just sort of do it reactively, and that's not helpful for the child who is in your best interest to protect and do whatever is best for them, because they're your kid. You want what's best for them, in theory. And some other challenges are just like on a personal level. This is really personal for all of us because we were all homeschooled. So one of the things that we do is we keep a database of homeschool abuse and fatalities, things that have happened to homeschooled children, any case where a homeschooled children has died or been neglected to death or abused to death by their parents. We track that because it's statistically significant against the same cases in the same age ranges for public school students. Because the data is really hard to collect, it's hard to tell exactly how statistically significant it is. Every attempt to kind of do a scientific, not census, but like any way to collect data on homeschoolers in a way that isn't self-selecting has been thwarted by HSLDA. So we can't get an actual data sample because of how homeschooling is set up in every state. Not everyone has to notify, and even if you do have to notify, that's not necessarily tracked. So it's hard to tell how many people are homeschooling at any given point. We just have rough estimates based on who volunteers that information. So it's hard to get an accurate, unbiased sample of what the status of homeschooling is in the U.S. And that's something that we've been working on so we can know better what the shortfalls are here and what we can do about it. But yeah, that's been thwarted at every turn. So it's something that we're trying very hard to get, but it's very hard to do. And with housing, there's just a lot of people who don't want low-income neighbors or people of color as their neighbors. So there's a lot of systemic and ingrained racism in the U.S., and a lot of that is perpetuated by redlining and zoning. And a lot of the neighbors who have benefited from this, who live in the hills and stuff, don't want affordable housing in their neighborhood or any other housing or anything that might go against their personal aesthetic that would house more people. And so a lot of the resistance we face there is very selfish in my experience, and is well, but my view, and I'm but we have a homelessness problem, dude. I think your view can suffer. I don't have sympathy for you. But a lot of it is just going back to homeschooling. It's very heart-wrenching, and it's a lot for all of us because it's personal, and we have personally experienced this on a lot of levels. So we often have to step back and make sure that we're taking care of our mental health, and we take breaks because it's a lot of emotional labor, just trying to help people homeschool and give them the best resources that we can. So it's a good decision that works out well for the child instead of one that works poorly.
Yeah, thank you. Now, you are actually up against systematic social norms that don't give children rights, right? I mean, children are the most unrepresented and have the least amount of rights than anybody in the United States, at least.
Yeah.
So what do you do in the case where a child wants to advocate for their own education and their parents don't support that?
That's happened a couple times here. One, the biggest case I think was with Josh Powell, who managed to take it up with his local government, and I think even the state government in Virginia. And I think he managed to get some legal representation. We have a lot of lawyers who are interested in this, who are if there is a kid who is being abused or neglected, then who's being homeschooled, we would like to take this case if it's a viable case. And so we plug people in with whatever resources we can find. Sometimes it's not a case that can, like, anything can happen legally, so we give them resources for them to educate themselves. Because there are no child's rights here. The reason we haven't signed the UN Rights of the Child Act is because of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. They have activated the entire homeschool base against it, and that's why we haven't signed it yet. This is why we're the only first world country that hasn't signed it. I don't think we can call ourselves a first world country anymore. So yeah, it depends on the situation and who's asking. So sometimes it'll be like the grandparent of a child is advocating for the child, and in that case we're like, well, we'll see if we can find anyone who, like, wants to take that case for you. And if it's a child, it's hard to do that because they don't have those resources. So we give them as much help as we can and point them to the direction of, like, things they can do to take their education into their own hands, like Khan Academy, online courses. We get them in touch with other kids who've gone through the same thing. We have a vast network of homeschool alumni who are happy to talk to other kids and, like, help them and be kind of in solidarity with them and supportive. Yeah, so that's what we try to do.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Is there any like US legislator, is there any, like, right to education? Because I know it's for each state governed differently, because I know it's not nobody really wants to centralize education in the US, and US is the only country that hasn't signed up to the UNCROC, to the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child. Even Somalia signed up now.
I know. Yeah, no, the US is not okay. Yeah, so there's not really a right to an education. I don't know that that exists in any state. It definitely doesn't exist. I don't think it exists verbatim like that. It's sort of understood loosely, but the child's right to education is superseded by the parent's right to decide how they should be educated. So it's not guaranteed in many places, if anywhere, and it's always superseded by the parents.
What do you think it's going to be like under your current administration and your current the nominee for education? I know it's quite a controversial topic, and who's against kind of like public education, wants to even further privatize it?
Yeah, no, I spent all day yesterday just horrified because Davos got in. So yeah, I think a lot of people already have. Like they're going to want to start homeschooling because if their public school is going to be gutted and they don't have the money to send them to a private school, then homeschooling is going to be the next option. So what we're trying to do now is, along with work with legislators in each state to say, hey, maybe some kind of accountability here for homeschoolers. Is make as many resources as we can available to parents who are going to start homeschooling just kind of out of the blue. They've never really thought about it before, but now suddenly everything is in danger. And on top of that, a lot of families with queer kids or brown kids or black kids or people kids who are going to be targeted at public schools because of all of the hate that the orange one has incited. Those kids are probably going to want to be homeschooled, and that would be a good idea. Take them away from that and give them an education that is going to foster and help their lives. This is good if the parent is okay with their queerness. It's not great if the parent isn't, because then the homeschooling is used to isolate. So mostly we're trying to just be supportive and give resources and make things available to parents who are new to the concept of homeschooling, because suddenly the education in America just went to shit. So we're just generating resources and trying to be as supportive as we can while also advocating for accountability.
I think the biggest problem that we have faced is probably because we've traveled so much and we've been I mean, we advocate for exploring different worldviews because we have such a global worldview at this point after traveling for 8 years. Seeing all the injustice that happens all over the world, really, and it's not specific to just one place. I mean, as everybody on this panel, I'm sure knows. I think that's really been that's been a huge part of our vision for Project World School, because a huge part of that is we really want to harbor this the sense of compassion among people who have never really had the chance to express compassion for other people, and especially for people of other cultures and for people who are so outside of their own walk of life. But I mean, I think that's really it. And trying to talk to people who are functioning in a different paradigm is also very difficult sometimes. People who really have a hard time changing, not even changing, but being open to other ways of thinking. And I think probably most, if not all, of the backlash we've received for our project, and even for the way that we've chosen to live our lives personally, has probably come from people who are stuck in that mindset. So.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Everybody on this panel is doing what they're doing for very, very personal reasons. And it's not just like I looked at a list of issues that I could tackle. What shall I do today? And, you know, everybody on this panel is really involved one way or another on a very, very deep personal level. And I think because what we're doing is we're focusing on the peace and the compassion and the interconnectivity and the humanity, even though we're not doing it in conflict zones or, you know, in places where perhaps, you know, there's big trauma. We're still, you know, on many levels, you're doing work that is worthy. So thank you, Miro, thank you. I would like to follow up with actually Caitlin and Cassidy. Why can't I just remember that? Okay, I'm going to cut that out. I'd like to follow up with you guys, and if you could share with us, because I know that you've been working, you did the first 4 months, then you came back, and it's been a year-long relationship with the people that you're working with. I'd like if you could share a little bit more about your vision for the nonprofit and how it's grown from your experiences and how it's changed over time.
So initially, when we first started it, we at the time were in Turkey, and we were helping refugees that we mainly just met like in the streets. They were sleeping in the streets of the city we were in Turkey, or in camps. So we started this nonprofit to initially just raise money to help them, to give them supplies and food and things like that. And over the first year, it grew rapidly, and as we kept volunteering in different places, we volunteered in Morocco, then we were in Greece, and a couple other places. We realized that we wanted to not only help refugees, but to inspire other youth as well to make a difference in their communities, and to create our vision is to create a community, I guess, of youth, of open-minded, of global citizens, I guess, that are all making a difference, and we can all inspire each other. So that's sort of our vision, to create this movement, this community of global change makers, I guess you can say. But initially, it was to help the refugees, and that still is our main focus in terms of like collecting donations and things like that, is still for the refugees. But we really realized that more than just handing out supplies or food for like volunteer work, humanitarian work wise, it's all about the human connection you make with these people, the connection sort of on the deeper level than just handing them stuff. It's all about the friendship that we made, and that came from our personal experiences, seeing how these kids changed even over the course of the last year, since we met them till now, and they've changed so much. At first, when we met them, they were very aggressive. They were like mad at the world. They were just depressed. And now seeing them in many of them in Europe, they have homes. They're going to school. They're trying to catch up on their learning, and to see how happy they are and how hopeful they are about their futures. Just seeing that change, that's when we realized really how much we can make an impact. So that's our vision, is to create this community of youth making a difference. Yeah. Let's see.
So, yeah, would you share the question that Alex just asked?
Yes. So Alex said, are you looking for the future to provide them with skill-based support, such as education, educational skills? Well, yes, in some...
Sorry, vocational skills, sorry, I didn't... And advocate, sorry, this was vocational, like job, sorry, I didn't see it's quite small though. Yeah, so vocational skills, sorry, like helping them get jobs and things like that, because it is quite a process. Especially in Turkey, they can't work for the first year.
Yes, well, all of the people that we worked with in Greece and all the kids and teenagers that we worked with are now getting back into the school and learning process and being integrated into a community again and getting used to their lives in Germany, Spain, and really all around the world. And but seeing these kids get into a community again and having friends and being a part of something is really cool. But they will start working. Some of our friends will start working soon, and it's exciting.
I think another big thing for us, even when we had just met them, was trying to sort of explain to them the cultural differences from where they were from, even like Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, countries like this, versus Sweden or Germany or the UK, for example. The cultural differences are so big, and so even explaining to them some of the different things, some of the skills they're going to have to know, obviously, other than the language, but some of the different cultural aspects that they had no idea about. So that was sort of another thing for us, more than just trying to teach them the basic things, English or other European languages, was to teach them sort of the cultural aspects of the countries they were going to.
Also, if you don't mind me asking, did you have any knowledge of Middle Eastern cultures, any specific localized cultures beforehand? I mean, I'm sure you must have now, but I'm not sure what beforehand out of interest.
Yeah, well, we had traveled around the Middle East. Well, for the past 3 years, we've been traveling around the Middle East. We've been to Turkey about, 4 times, Egypt twice, and we're going to Egypt next week also. And we've also been to Morocco,
Israel, Palestine, Jordan, a lot of the Gulf countries. So we actually met a lot of Syrians in these different countries. So that's really where we found our passion, I guess you can say, for the Middle Eastern culture. Also, our family heritage is originally Lebanese and Syrian. So it is sort of in our blood. It's our family, it's our heritage. So as soon as we did go to the Middle East for the first time, we sort of fell in love with it. So that's why we have also such a passion for this cause and love for these people. Is it's a culture that we absolutely adore as well.
I'd like to take this one step further and ask the panel how you deal with, as you're working on your own projects and causes, how you deal with the not just culture but societal beliefs that are contrary to the projects that you're working on. And the way that I describe it always is when we're talking to somebody about our lifestyle and it being an actual valid point of education, and we can explain how it's always as if we're swimming upstream against the current. Like it's always as if we have to double, triple, quadruple the amount of effort it takes to get some sort of acceptance or some sort of understanding from those that are from our culture. So if you guys could talk about that a little bit, I'd be really curious to hear what that looks like from your perspective.
Yeah, I think for us mainly, the biggest thing is when we talk to people and we tell them about what we're doing, seeing, and as soon as we say they're Middle Eastern or the majority of them are of Muslim faith, they immediately sort of not back away, but are a bit standoffish, I guess you can say. And it is a lot harder for us to try and explain our cause and why we are so passionate about it, and why these people need help or encouragement or teaching, education, because of the certain faith or the certain region they're from. And so for us, it's really hard because we have known many of these people for so long. We just see them as friends, as a community. We don't really think anymore about, oh, they're Muslim or they're Christian or oh, they don't believe in anything. For us, it really doesn't matter. And so for us, it's really hard when all of a sudden we're telling strangers or people we don't know very well about our work and seeing the reactions. And many times people don't want to really hear it as soon as they hear that we're working with people from that certain region. So that's a big challenge for us.
A lot of what, well, you mentioned kind of like swimming upstream and trying to like validate your existence to people. This has been my entire life. I understand. I don't know what it's like to not have to deal with that. I don't know. A lot of the things that like I struggle with externally is the same things that I struggled with internally. So like I know the mindset of kind of the opposition, for lack of a better term, from both sides, because I grew up in one and came out on the other. So I know kind of where both of them lead. So a lot of it is really just kind of self-care in a way. Like, I know that this argument isn't necessarily a valid thing and doesn't invalidate any of the work that I'm doing on my identity. And I know that this argument also doesn't do that thing. So a lot of it is like keeping myself focused. And then from that point, I'm better able to address it. When I get to the point where I can like stand back and realize none of this invalidates my existence, then it's easier to be like, okay, well, these are the reasons why we do this, and this is the reason why we do that, when explaining to people. When I talk to people who haven't made homeschooling a part of their identity, and I tell them the current state of things, people are generally horrified because it didn't dawn on them that there wouldn't be kind of public school kind of regulations for homeschooling where you have like a community of support and you have teachers and you have people who can like fire you if you do bad. So that's sort of validating in a weird way where it's like, okay, I'm on the right track with this being an uncommon thing that people are not aware of. And then communicating with homeschool parents is a lot harder because that's such a core piece of their identity to some of them, that like any kind of assertion that maybe homeschooling isn't right for all people really kind of offends them. It makes them feel like their existence is invalidated. And so that's a really hard gap to bridge. And sometimes you just kind of have to wait for them to get there and find an angle where you can get to the empathy. Because if you can reach the part where people can empathize and understand, no, this isn't about like hurting you or punishing you. This is about all of the dead kids over there. Like, we need to not have dead kids. And then people are like, oh, I see. Okay. So it's finding the common ground that gets you an entry point past their, oh my God, you're attacking me, and into the, oh, this is a bigger problem than me.
Actually, I'm sorry. Actually, I think probably challenges for me was, well, one was like a systematic, again, kind of like when I was in Romania the first time in 2013 when I spoke in Parliament the first time, and there was some other advocates there, that's been adopted, and that woman shared her story, and the biggest challenge was that we had the hearing lasted for 9 hours the whole day, and the media was there and everyone filmed it, and the footage just never got seen again to the public or anything. So the only thing we had kind of is like, my dad was with me at the time because we were in Europe visiting family. He made a secret video on his phone. Yeah, but so that was quite, an interesting thing. And in 2015, again, we were supposed to meet with a group of politicians, and then they didn't turn up because there were rumors going around that they'd been threatened for meeting with me and other people. So one woman that was kind of brave to meet with us met with us in secret in the restaurant and told us we should take a taxi there and everything and not make it public that we're meeting her. So that was quite interesting. And I guess maybe another bit was kind of like that argument, why you're doing that, not some people, but like when I was going in 2015, the media took quite an interest in it, and they put me on the main news in New Zealand, in the big news, at the 6 p.m. news. And the comments some people were writing online was just like, oh, just deport them back to Germany or Romania, or kill all the kids there, they're just rats. It was quite a bit shocking, but not anymore, because it's kind of just people, put whatever they want online. That's how overall lots of people actually have been quite supportive, and especially if I, talk to organizations now, I mean, even if you talk to them not having any context, that they've been very receptive. It's, I guess, just also how you view yourself. I mean, I'm only 21, but I know people take me quite serious.
So I pretty much grew up in Latin America. I spent a lot of my time in Central and South America. And it was difficult because every person, I mean, without exception, every person you met, you would have to explain, well, first off, you'd have to explain homeschooling, but that's not even mentioning unschooling, right? And something so far out of the norm in these societies. And it's difficult. It really is difficult, constantly having to justify the way that you want to live your life. And you can be a person that is really set in their beliefs and set in their ideologies and all that stuff, but it still makes it difficult having to do it with every single person, and it tires you. And eventually, there's certainly some self-doubt that goes into that, and there's certainly some second guessing, and that can also be very difficult, in my experience at least.
Yeah.
I empathize. I also had to explain homeschooling to everyone that I met. I feel you. I'm sorry. It's a hard thing.
We also almost have like a speech that we have like all down, the whole family like explains every time we meet someone. So what are you doing? Why aren't you in school? Wow. Totally.
Yeah.
It's like for me when people ask me, oh, so where you're from, and people always think, oh, you must be somewhere like from South America or the Middle East, because I don't look the typical European, and always kind of have that line ready, adopted from Romania by German parents living in New Zealand now. And it gets even more complicated if you go overseas, because I was last year with an NGO on a youth scholarship in Nepal, and people ask, oh, so where are you from? Are you from India or Nepal? So it gets always quite funny, and people get always confused if I speak to them in German, and they say, oh, what did you learn German? I said, I am a German, but they say, oh, but you don't look like a German. And when we were the other year in 2015 in Europe, even like some people thought I was a refugee and even got checked by the police.
Yeah, and I think that just goes to show how much judgment there is based on these paradigms, these cultural paradigms of belief, right? These systems of belief the social engineering of the world that we didn't have any say on. And case in point, we're here in South Africa right now, and we're learning about apartheid, and we're learning that, you know, families were split up and classified based on how a person's skin tone is. Same mother, same father, but one kid may be lighter and they would be classified one way, and another, and they would have to live in this neighborhood, and another, you know, and could not live with their families because it was illegal. And so all this social engineering, whether it's deliberate or not, as global change makers, these are the things that we're swimming upstream against. And some of these social engineering ideas are not even out in the consciousness anymore. They're so embedded into the belief systems of the cultures or of human beings that we forget to question them. And I think the work that everybody here on this panel is doing is like that disruptor, that hiccup in the norm, that's saying that you can question, you can question everything, and it's your choice to do that. So I would love some comments about that. I'll leave that open to the panel. Sorry, we realized it wasn't really a question, but go ahead, Alex.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess maybe first answering that question, I guess, is, you know, I guess it's maybe having, you know, that global awareness. You know, I guess you can kind of tell people that have traveled and, or those that have been lucky to travel, and those that haven't most of the times, because those have maybe a bit better global and more broader perspectives. Because they've seen, you know, things are differently back then, yes, you know, interacted with people of different beliefs or, you know, different cultures. I mean, going to Southeast Asia was definitely a culture shock for me, and seeing, you know, how some places can be quite underdeveloped.
I think
But
that's a big problem.
maybe they might be underdeveloped, but, you know, there's still, for example, really, you know, grateful people, even, you know, people that have survived an earthquake over there, because we went trekking for 2 days in the Himalayas.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem culturally in the U.S. is it's really hard and expensive to travel outside of the U.S. A lot of people don't. So a lot of people in the U.S. kind of like, they don't have that. They've never experienced another country. So it's very easy for us to isolate ourselves, especially because we're like an ocean away from Europe. So we can, and like the entire rest of the world where other countries are kind of closer together and it's easier to traipse about. So we don't, it's hard for a lot of people to travel, so we don't have that global mindset. And introducing people who have never traveled and have no desire to travel outside the US because they are Americans, damn it, is really hard. Because they're like, but America is the best country. It's like, well, but have you been anywhere else though? And that's the thing, and that's a hard prejudice to overcome, like having never experienced another country. So you don't have the idea of the way other countries do things. I didn't ever leave the country until this December, and I went to Mexico City, and I was like, holy shit, there's another country, and it does things differently, and it's awesome, and it's great, and this is so cool. I know I had a lot of friends who've traveled for school and stuff, so like I was open to like thinking about the world as an entire globe and place where we all interact like through that and through the internet. I have so many friends like overseas in Europe and Canada and everywhere really. Some of my friends have taught in Vietnam. So I know a lot of people who've traveled, so I've just kind of absorbed their experiences and mentalities to like broaden my perspective. But that's a problem that we have here is a lot of people just don't, and they don't have any reason to. So it's hard to like explain, but we are part of like an entire Earth. There are other people in other countries who exist and matter. We're not just the only country on the planet. And And that's a hard thing to overcome and takes a lot of talking and a lot of like work that people don't necessarily want to put into it because it involves a lot of introspection and looking at your own prejudices and your own ingrained like racism and sexism and stuff and your own ingrained intolerances, which is a lot of brain digging around that a lot of people just don't really feel like doing.
Right, and I think that like as you said, you know, there definitely is this mindset of America, damn it, right? There's no real need for a lot of people to actually leave their bubble and go outside of that. And as you said, because of how difficult it is to travel, especially overseas, to leave America is so expensive, especially if you're traveling with a family. You know, it's a lot of people. But I think that like, again, there are countries that are a lot closer, that are a lot more accessible for Americans to access. But at the same time, I feel like there's definitely this fear that's propagated by the media and even by society as a whole. As you know, there's like Latin America that is pretty accessible to most Americans, and they simply again, they have no desire. And I think
and everyone has spent so much time being racist against Mexicans that it's like kept people from wanting to go.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's absurd.
So I think like, again, I think that's a really difficult thing to deal with. And honestly, dealing with other Americans that I meet on the road, it can be very difficult.
I'm so sorry.
I mean, I'm sorry too, you know, we're both also Americans by birth. But you know, again, like I just have such a hard time relating to them a lot of the time. So for sure, I totally agree with what you're saying.
I think for us, it's sort of the same experience as you guys were saying, because for so long, I mean, we never really lived in the U.S. We only lived there for like a year total, maybe our whole lives, and so it's really hard sometimes to go back. Sort of, we also call it the bubble, I guess you can say, just interacting with people and talking to people who haven't experienced other cultures. And it's just very hard for us, I guess, to connect because we're so global and we want to talk about maybe global issues, for example, or international issues. And it's very hard when it's just America. It's just America, and if the issue doesn't relate to America or the certain city that they're in, they don't know about it. So kind of the same for us as well. It's hard to relate, but it is, I guess, unless you travel, then you don't know, like you were saying. So it's hard meeting people sometimes and talking to people and trying to have conversations when they haven't traveled as much. So that, yeah, we agree. So, yeah. Do you have anything to say?
No.
Yeah, Alex, you've got such a mixture of cultures and backgrounds and traditions in your pocket, you know. Can you talk a little bit how that affects how you see the world?
Yeah, I guess, I'd say, I guess like everyone else, that's basically just you get a more global perspective. I mean, you've got, definitely would say I've got quite a strong, of course, European perspective, of course, having lived there, so far most of my life, but, having been around a bit as well, kind of gives you a global perspective and being also adopted from Romania. I guess I don't believe that kind of narrative where you get told, or if you get adopted, you lose your culture of birth, I mean, you don't, for example, have a culture in an orphanage, or in an institution. And you can always learn about your culture if you become really interested in it, which generally happens to people, in their late teenage years, or early 20s when they're, fully kind of people wanting to solidify their own identities. And that's why I helped my friend, fund that organization or the nonprofit I'm adopted, because that's, one part that's kind of crucial, we believe. And also, why, we've got Romanian family friends, that tell you about, about Romania, or, watch a Romanian documentary or movie, So I guess that's how I would say, that culture is kind of more a socialized process, not an ingrained process.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And also, as Karen was saying, with internet and like connectivity, we're speaking from the United States to South Africa to Greece and New Zealand right now. We are all basically connected and can be connected not only through technology but through cultures at large. And I guess it's just a matter of wanting to approach it with love and respect instead of fear and, you know, picking out the differences. So yeah, I can see that. Before we run out of time, I want to ask everybody on this panel to share with us what, now I hate putting it in this way, but I'm going to ask you for your blue sky scenario. And what that means is, what would it look like if there was no need for doing what you do? Meaning there are no, refugees. There is no crime against, children who are adopted or children who are homeschooled. What would the world look like? What would the blue sky scenario look like in a perfect world? And what would be the vision that perhaps could get us there? And again, no holds barred. I mean, you don't have to say, but people are stopping me from doing this. That's why I can't do it. What would it look like in utopia? So I'm going to just open that to the panel and let you think about that and jump right on in if you're ready. Oh, Miro.
I could start.
Miro's going to start.
I think a huge part that would go to helping what we do, our vision, is if in the world the people rule the government rather than, the people are ruled by the government. And I think that in such a world, compassion and, cultural acceptance at large could also be practiced. I feel like in such a scenario, war would probably be a pretty rare occurrence. I think, it would more resemble a utopia, I guess, than it does now. So I think that's a huge part where people are empowered.
Yeah, I basically want to live in like the Star Trek universe where everything is fine. Yeah, right, yeah. I think the blue sky scenario for homeschooling would be like homeschooling is as valid an educational option as public or private. It meets a need of a child that is better suited for it. Ideally, there would be like just as much of a support system for homeschool parents as like as many resources as like school systems have, where there's like a bunch of people who teach different things and do different things, and like there's accountability and stuff. So if someone is bad, then they're dealt with. I want there to be like resources for homeschool kids to like get cool, like use cool city programs to get into college and to like do school sports if that's a thing that they want to do, like be able to like join their local school sports team and be on it as long as they're like making their grades and stuff. I like ideally homeschool kids would be just like every other kid, just schooled at home instead, subject to the same like resources and stuff that schools have if they so choose. I want there to be support for homeschool parents, so if they're like struggling with algebra, they can like find like a tutor or get their kid into a math class or whatever it is that like meets the need of them and their child. That's something that I want to work on in Oakland, actually, is there's this really cool kind of like high school to college program that I don't think includes homeschooled students, and I would love it to, because if a homeschooled student lives in Oakland and wants to go to college, that would be a great like scholarship opportunity for them. So I basically just want to afford all of the good things that public school has to offer to homeschooled students. I want to afford the support and resources of community to homeschooled students and like students in general, where everybody just kind of works together for the good of like the next generation who's gonna carry on the human species. For housing, I just want there to be enough of it and very tall. because I like tall buildings, and tall buildings are rad, and you can fit more people in them, and it's better for the environment. So basically just a place where everyone's education works for them and is good for them and equips them for the future. That is my blue sky.
I think a blue sky scenario for both of us would be to see the world have more compassion for the refugees and invite them into their homes and just be open to them, especially in countries like America, and to see them welcome them in and really with gratitude and without
I think another thing, like Miro, like you said, is cultural acceptance, cultural awareness and acceptance of these people, and seeing, okay, yes, they're from a different culture, but let's embrace that diversity. Let's learn from their culture. Let's see what their culture has to offer, maybe that we don't know about. It's an exchange of cultures, and just having, as she said, like that compassion, more compassion to let these people in and see these people as just normal human beings. And embracing them, really embracing who they are as people, embracing them as friends, and their culture. And so yeah, definitely just less prejudgments, I guess you can say, where first we see everyone as human beings just the same, and second, maybe what culture they're from or what religion they have. So I think that's the biggest thing, yeah, is compassion and cultural acceptance.
I think for me, probably if I start off probably with my kind of own area of focus, probably would be just to kind of have adoptions represented, or at least, more talked about, and not just kind of given that negative image. And I think there's some places that are doing really great work, like Australia, Dave, or the region in Sydney, because Australia is also federal government, so like the states a bit, where they've invested $2.5 million into research into adoptions, research at the university there. So that's quite a start, but I think, if countries like New Zealand will follow up with that, that would be good, to just look at issues instead of just trying to, put them away. So that would be a start, and I guess have also, global representation of adoption somewhere like the UN. So that would be kind of a dream. And then I guess also to have a support system to actually have the financial, and resources for things, for different agencies, because that's that they all struggle with. And then also post-adoption support, which I'm helping my friend with and the group, so that would be something good. And then I guess globally probably would be just have more cultural and just I guess global understanding of things. Yeah,
I want to live in these universes for sure.
What is?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I think that's everything else has been pretty much said. So just kind of add my perspective to it.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I really want to live in this universe that you've all described. It's beautiful. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the show, but I'm going to ask each of our panelists to give us some closing thoughts, your closing remarks, or anything that you'd like to leave the audience with. And then afterwards, after your closing remarks, do share with us your projects and websites. But I will remind our audience that you can find the projects and websites on the show notes page at Conscious Consumer Network. So I'm going to just open it up, closing remarks, and share your projects and websites with us.
Basically, I just want to build more housing so people have places to live, and I want homeschooling to be an educational option that is great and empowering to the student and isn't detrimental to their well-being. I'm for accountability that embraces all of the flexibility that homeschooling has to offer. The organizations that I work for / with really is the Coalition for Responsible Home Education, and our site is responsiblehomeschooling.org. And the housing advocacy group that I'm a part of is East Bay Forward, and that's at eastbayforward.org.
So for us, it was amazing talking to you all. And really for us, our goal is to just create a real community where youth can come together and be inspired and share stories and just share their visions, their goals, and everything, because we believe that we can make a difference. I mean, even though we're all young, we still have the power to make a difference in people's lives or in communities or wherever it may be, or wherever what cause we're working with. And so our charity is kidsuniteforhope.org. So and we just love to hear stories and to hear what other youth around the world, what they're doing, and unite globally.
So yeah, I guess, yeah, just what I said early on, I guess, and just, yeah, closing remarks would be, I guess, yeah, for the future is what I talked about, what I'm working on, that kind of like my project would become, realized. I guess of a more global representation of the issue of adoptions. And just guess, people more willing to have dialogues about issues. So that's, yeah, my closing remarks. And I guess what I said to mention, if everyone just would send their name and email so we can stay in touch, it would be good.
Alex, do you have a website for your org?
Yes.
And I'll remind our audience that are watching this show that you can find it again on the show notes page. So all those links will be there. And
you're right. I guess my closing remark is I'm just so happy to see other people who are, very passionate and advocating for what they want to do. I think that's great. That's as a whole, all these different people coming together to do what they want to do. That's how the world's going to change. So seeing all these people, I don't want to say it allows me to rest easy, because obviously, there's work for me to do as well, but it's reassuring for sure. So that's just what I want to say. I want to empower people to really, make change.
Your website?
So, our website is projectworldschool.com, and you guys are already watching her show. So there you go.
Fantastic. So I just want to thank our panel once again. Thank you for sharing the stuff that you do. And you all are youth global change makers, whether you're doing it locally or you're doing it globally. So I'm really, really honored to have been able to share this time with you this evening. Also, I want to thank Anne, who produced the show. Anne, thank you for gathering this amazing group that I am just absolutely, again, still so blown away about. Thank you, Anne. And also thank you, Mel and Vicki over at Conscious Consumer Network. We are, as always, so grateful for the work that you do, allowing us to broadcast on your network and these different voices from around the world. And finally, I'd like to close the show with always saying, wherever you are and whatever you do, continue to always do it
for the love of learning.
And we're out.
My name is Mira Siegel, and I'm 17, but I'll be 18 in April, and the issues that I'm working on are redefining education through cultural and experiential learning, and creating a more peaceful and compassionate world through travel.
I've been traveling for the last 8 years, living in many different cultures and learning through my surroundings. I'm an unschooler. In other words, I'm a self-directed learner, but by no means does that mean that I'm uneducated. I'm actually educated from the world around me, and this experience has grown into my own activism, helping others to drive their education through experiential learning. I call it world schooling. I feel world schooling is important for 2 reasons. 1, to empower the student to adapt a self-directed learner mindset, and 2, to create a more peaceful planet. 4 years ago, my mother and I started a business called Project World School, with the intent of bringing young adults to different parts of the world to have authentic cultural experiences, build bridges, do volunteer work, and provide a space to experience the world as a safe place, outside of their comfort zones and within community. Since then, I've co-created these experiences for over 50 teens, all who have been profoundly changed as a result. I'm working directly with the next generation of learners, helping to redefine what global education is. World schooling instills a sense of belonging within a large world community, which fosters the idea that all world systems are interconnected and interdependent. Through world schooling, we expand our worldviews, encouraging us to celebrate our differences with compassion and value our similarities with pride. How do I think I can change things in my community? This is a question that we explore with every participant at Project World School. In community, we facilitate participants to practice reflection, live and learn collaboratively, and give back to the communities we visit through service. When teens return to their home communities, they have experienced to better advocate for the change they want to see locally because they've experienced the power of collaboration. My future? I plan on continuing my work with Project World School, advocate for world schooling, and do my part to create a more friendly planet.
I want to become a global change maker to connect with other change makers and revolutionaries, and to learn about how others are doing their part to change the world.
If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Mainstream media exists for the purposes of indoctrination and manipulation of public perception. The world of free and independent media is growing, and with the upsurge in information now available in the public domain, it has never been easier to access free and independent media. The exploration of this information resulted in an experimental project which would provide a fully supported space for researchers, whistleblowers, and seekers of all kinds to express themselves and educate the world. On the 1st of January 2015, Conscious Consumer Network was launched to the world. Nobody thought we would make it this far, but CCN is the longest running free and independent media network of its kind. CCN is a unique collaboration of hearts and souls, bringing you information from different perspectives to educate and inform. Since we started CCN, we have had only one desire: the pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world, and this has not changed. Having overcome many challenges over the last 2 years, CCN is here to stay, and we've got great things lined up for 2017. Help keep CCN on the air by supporting the 2017 Network Support Fund.